This segment is brought to you by Barker Honda. It's better at Barker. All right, welcome back to Good Vibes. I'm Martin Falls. Debbie Cox DeNova is in the house. How are you, Debbie?
I'm doing well. How are you?
All right. I like the topic today. And it's sort of general, but I know you're going to refine it for us a little bit. Finding purpose.
Yeah.
Isn't that everybody's goal?
That should be everybody's goal.
Yeah.
And, even if it's not an overt goal that you set for yourself, deep inside, when you don't have a sense of purpose, you feel like you're kind of wandering around, being blown about. There's something dissatisfactory about that. So when I talk to someone, if they're not actively pursuing what their purpose is, they tend to be in avoidance somehow. So they're spending a lot of time doing things that are sort of numbing them out to the fact that they feel like they don't have any direction or control over their lives.
How about this? I'm going to throw something at you.
Sure.
I don't know what my purpose is.
Oh.
But I know that when I don't have purpose, I feel it.
Yeah.
But I don't have a general purpose.
Okay, so maybe by the end of this conversation, you'll have a better sense of your purpose. I think that a big part of this, and I know for a fact that you live with purpose because I know you. And so I think one of the big problems is that people have this large list of misconceptions around the idea of purpose, and it keeps them from actually feeling into what their purpose actually is. So I'd like to go over a list of that. And then if at home you are actually in the experience of like, what is my purpose? Maybe you can take some notes around this and maybe it can kind of help you to gain some direction.
All right,
and this comes from self-determination theory, which is how people invoke that sense of direction, meaning purpose and control in their lives. So the first misconception that people have is that the purpose needs to be connected to a career or a job. So a lot of people think when they say they were basically cramming this idea of purpose into their job. So what job do I need to have? What career path do I need to take in order to have a greater sense of purpose? And of course, this becomes problematic if you are in your 30s, 40s, 50s, you are really invested in the work that you're doing, but you still don't find you have purpose, right? And what's interesting is that when we look at people who say they have purpose, they don't necessarily, people who say they don't have purpose can actually have a job, a really successful job, a family. They can have a lot going for them and still feel like they don't have a sense of purpose. And people who are homeless and don't have a lot, quantifiably not a lot, can actually say they do have a sense of purpose. So purpose is intrinsically developed. This is really important. So one thing to recognize is that your purpose can come out of many different areas of life. It does not have to be pigeonholed into a career or job. It also doesn't have to necessarily be service driven. So a lot of people feel like, okay, well, I need to be in service to someone and that needs to be connected to my purpose. It might be. Or it might not be. So let's just broaden the scope a little bit more, okay? And then the third thing is that people think it has to be grand. And so what they're actually doing a lot of times is they're thinking like, I need to have this grand, big purpose in life. And what they're really doing is they're on a quest for self-esteem, and they are assigning that to their search for purpose, which makes it so that purpose tends to elude them. Because again, if you're pigeonholing purpose into all of these things, you may be missing it, okay? The fourth one is that people think that it's unchanging. If I have a purpose in this life, it's going to be one and done. It's this great big thing that once I find it, it will be the thing that pushes me all the way through my life. When in fact, your purpose can change, and it often does change. And sometimes you have one purpose that leads like breadcrumbs to another purpose, to another purpose, to another purpose. I think you and I have actually discussed this before. Sometimes if you've been mistreating your body, for example, you just don't feel good in your body, you're sick, your very first purpose, your very first breadcrumb probably is to take care of your physical body, because it's very difficult to focus on larger scheme things when your temple is not feeling well.
Just like I beat my body up so much, I don't know if it's recoverable.
But that may be the first order of business, right? Is to actually make yourself feel or address your health. And if you bring it down to where it's like, okay, I don't feel good in my body, a lot of times, and you know this, when you have the flu or something like that, you try to focus on anything. It's like, it's just different, right? So being able to focus on one thing in order to better prepare yourself to get to the next thing is really valuable. The other thing is that a lot of people believe that they're looking out there for someone to tell them, whether it is their community, their parents, God, somebody tell me what my purpose is. And the problem with purpose is that purpose is not going to be found outside of these 4 things. I'll write it down, okay? The 4 things that are going to be your values, your desires, your interests, and your passion. Now, notice it's all about what's going on inside of you. So if you're looking outside of yourself and going like, what's the right way? What's the wrong way? I got to make the proper choice. A lot of times that leads to paralysis. And the problem is that when you look at self-determination theory, people who feel like they have purpose in life, they make choices. They make a lot of choices. Just like you make a lot of choices on a day-to-day basis, people without purpose, direction, and meaning, they have choices made upon them. So they feel very out of control with their own lives. So the problem is that if you're looking outside of yourself for someone else, an authority figure, and this is especially true for those who have been taught to mistrust their own guidance system, if you're looking outside of yourself for a sense of purpose, people can tell you all day long, like, your purpose should be this. You should be interested in that. You should devote your life to this. It's not going to hit within yourself like purpose unless it's actually coming from within yourself. It's not to say that it's not influenced by others, because a big part of this is relatedness. You have to be able to like be your authentic self and have someone see you for who you are and recognize you and accept you in order for it to feel.
I've been writing things down, going to the break. You know, just changed my mind. I know what my purpose is.
Do you?
I'll tell you coming out the break.
Okay, perfect.
All right, there we have it. What's your purpose? We'll take a break. Don't go away.
This segment was brought to you by Barker Honda. It's better at Barker.
All right, welcome back to Good Vibes. Martin Falls, Debbie Cox DeNova. We're talking about finding purpose. All right, in the beginning of the show, I tell you I had no real focus on purpose. I lied. As you're talking, I'm realizing values. I want to make sure my mom sees me every day in her latter years, that her spiritual needs are met, playing the rosary in her room, doing different things. But there's a reward. When you're taking care of your mother, I'm getting it back.
Yeah.
When the rosary's playing, I'm getting it back.
Yes.
So, but that changed from when I was in my 30s and 40s.
Yes.
Because mom was healthy, dad was living. Didn't really have to meet their needs. I can meet my own needs. But as you get older, it sort of shifts.
Yes, exactly. And it can continue to shift, and it will continue to shift in certain ways till the day that you die, right? But I like what you said is like there's a return on that. And I think that that is a signal. You know, a lot of my work as a life coach is helping people to excavate for what they actually got excited about when they were younger at factory settings. The problem for a lot of us is that we, you know, quite naturally, maybe we leaned into art, maybe we leaned into language, maybe we leaned into physical sports when we were quite young. But somewhere along the line, because we are social creatures, we want confluence with others. So if someone or if people in your community told you, oh, you're not good enough at art to monetize that. You're not going to make a career out of that, right? What can happen is that what originally lit you up is pushed aside for what you feel you need to do in order to have that connection with your community, your family, your friends, and all of that. What happens in that process is that you develop a distrust for your own sort of what lights you up, right? And a lot of people will naturally be good at specific things and they'll dismiss that because it comes so easy to them. Well, that is, very simply put, if you lean more into that, that could be your purpose. It feeds back to you this sense of, and it doesn't always have to be joy, right? If you think about Martin Luther King and his purpose in life, it doesn't always have to be joy. But wherever you're investing your time and your energy, if there's internal expansion, if you feel a sense of purpose and a sense of importance in that, that is your sign, okay, I'm on purpose here. And that's a very good thing to continue to follow.
Yeah, I like that phrase. I did it on purpose.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
But no, as you're talking, I'm realizing I probably had more purpose than I just don't dwell on it. I don't go, what's my purpose? But I do have purpose.
You have, exactly. So it's like you're may not be identifying it as like, oh, this is my purpose.
Yeah.
But you have a very strong sense of what your purpose is, because that's where you're putting your energies and you're moving forward, right? So like I said before, that sense of like that sovereignty, like I'm going to make this choice over that. People who have a good sense of purpose, they make a lot of choices. And that's one thing at home. If you're not making a lot of choices in life, just exercising the muscle of making independent choices over your life can actually give you a greater sense of purpose. The other thing is that you can actually stretch your capacity. You know, a lot of people are sitting there at home doing nothing and they're thinking they're going to think their way into purpose. Well, people who find purpose are often out there taking risks in life and trying new things. So when you expose yourself to a broader, range of things, you start to learn about yourself. And this is really important because, like we said, it's not going to come outside of your values and your desires and your passions, right? It's going to be something that's within yourself. When you know yourself, and like, I'm really good at this, but I don't like that at all. I love this, but not that. I don't want to do that. Once you start to get to know yourself really well, then you recognize, actually, what I want to do is make a difference in this area. Or I want to devote myself to doing these things because it lights me up, right? And not dismissing that as something that is not important because it doesn't serve a great big grander purpose. Okay, a couple of questions that you can ask yourself that may be super helpful is, and think about this. I want to hear your answer actually. If you only had 2 years left to live, what would you be spending your time doing in that 2 years?
Probably taking care of loved ones, making sure they're okay, taking care of my employees, making sure they're okay and set, and making sure I'm good with God.
Love that. Okay. Question number 2. If time or money weren't a factor, what would you do with your life? You got all the money in the world, all the time in the world. What would you do?
Be a coach.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's interesting. Tell me about that.
I coached 8th grade when I was in Nichols
Okay.
at Vanderbilt. And I just love, because I played all sports, I just love coaching. So if I wasn't doing TV, which I loved, I'd be coaching.
That's very interesting, Martin.
Yeah.
Okay. It's something to kind of note for yourself, like bookmark that idea. The other thing is that when we talk about stretching capacity, stretching your capacity it's like a muscle. If you go to the gym every single day, but you lift really light weights, you know that you're not going to reach that place of hypertrophy.
That is true.
You're not going to get
Why
stronger.
are you telling all my secrets?
I'm talking about you, Martin. But if you do that, you're not going to get stronger, right? And so it's the same thing with capacity. Wherever you find that you, like even in your zone of genius, wherever you find your capacity actually is, you need to be able to stretch a little bit past that in order to actually raise your self-esteem and to actually give yourself a greater sense of purpose. And so the invitation then is to actually look into where's my line, and let me go a little bit beyond that. And the other thing is to choose active challenges instead of passive challenges. Passive challenges are like, now your car doesn't start. Now you got to deal with that, right? Or, there's flooding in the house or whatever it is. But active challenges, people who are getting their stuff together, they're oftentimes not doing the bare minimum like other people are, when you look at their lives, they're actually taking on more. They're running more. They're eating better, right? So what active challenges can you plot for yourself that are in attunement with what you want in your life? That'll give you a greater sense of purpose.
Great show.
Thank you.
I got purpose.
Yeah,
All right,
you do.
All right, we're going to see you next week, same place, same time, right here on Good Vibes.
This segment was brought to you by St. Martin and Bourke. Know your rights.